Stop calling it depression for a minute. Sit down. I need you to listen to an old man who paid 3 therapists, swallowed pills from the same amber bottle for 8 years, and still woke up hollow. My name is Raymond. I'm 89 years old. Therapists called it depression. They were not fools. I was tired. I was flat. Some days, I stopped answering the phone because even my own voice felt like work. But I call it something uglier now. A wasted life. Not because nobody loved me. Helen loved me. Brian tried. Patricia tried harder. There is an amber pill bottle in my bathroom cabinet. White cap. My name printed crooked on the label. Every refill date is a receipt. Here is the question I did not ask until almost too late. Why did Brian write, "Dad was home, but he was missing," on the back of a photograph? I kept that photo for years without reading the back. In 1971, I thought I understood love. Helen and I had Brian first, loud little boy, always carrying a stick like a sword. Patricia came 3 years later. Serious eyes, bottle cap saved in a shoebox. I worked at an insurance office in Columbus. Gray suits, cheap aftershave, carbon paper on my fingers. I wanted a clean house. Paid bills. 2 cars that started in February. A college fund. A fence Brian could not climb. A piano for Patricia. Helen once stood in the garage doorway while I sorted tools after 9 at night. She said, "Come inside, Raymond." I said, "After this." That was my whole religion. After this report. After this raise. After this client. After this year. There was a small blue lunchbox Brian carried to school. He left it on my workbench because the latch broke. He asked me to fix it before Monday. He said, "Please don't forget." I told him I wouldn't. That lunchbox will matter later. Last winter, I found that blue lunchbox in an attic box under tax folders. The latch was still broken. Inside was a folded photograph. Brian and Patricia in the backyard, maybe 1982. Brian had missing front teeth. Patricia wore a paper crown. On the back, in Brian's grown-up handwriting, it said, "Dad was home, but he was missing." I put it down like it was hot. I did not read the rest. At first, Brian and Patricia still came around. Brian would pull into my driveway and ask about oil changes. Patricia would bring laundry from college and sit on the basement steps. Then the visits got shorter. Brian stopped coming inside. He stood by his truck with one hand on the door. He'd say, "Busy week, Dad." Patricia called on Sunday nights. 10 minutes. Then 7. Then 4. I could hear traffic through her window. I asked about work. She said fine. She asked about Helen. I said fine. Neither of us mentioned the piano sitting against the wall with mail on top. By 2004, Christmas became a negotiation. Brian had his in-laws. Patricia had flights. Helen would say, "They have lives, Raymond?" I nodded too fast. I made excuses for them before they needed any. Then Helen got sick, and I became useful again. Hospital waiting rooms. Insurance forms. I knew forms. Brian came Saturdays. Patricia came when she could. I watched them whisper near the elevator and told myself grown children whisper. After Helen died in 2016, Brian called every Thursday for 2 months. Then every other Thursday. Then birthdays. Then not always. I finally read the rest of the photograph in a hardware store parking lot. I sat in my Buick with brass screws on the passenger seat and that blue lunchbox open on my lap. Under, "Dad was home, but he was missing." Brian had written one more line. He always looked past us like something better was waiting behind us. That was the answer. I had thought my sin was absence. No. The worst thing was being there and making them feel in the way. I remembered Brian holding that broken lunchbox. I remembered looking at the latch, then at the clock. I said, "Leave it there." He did. For 47 years. Here is the part nobody likes. The damage got quiet. No slammed door. No speech. No Christmas fight where Brian told me what I was. It became routine. I would stand in the pharmacy line with that amber pill bottle in my coat pocket. The label said depression. The doctor asked about sleep. Nobody asked about the lunchbox. Nobody asked why Patricia stopped sending pictures of her children after I replied to one with, "Looks good." Not "I miss them." Not "Tell them Grandpa loves them." Just "Looks good." I was a ghost with a mailing address. I paid taxes. Changed furnace filters. I was physically present in every room and emotionally gone from all of them. One afternoon, Patricia called while I was in the garage, sharpening a lawnmower blade I no longer needed. She asked, "Can you talk?" I looked at the blade. I said, "Make it quick." There it is. That is the sound of a wasted life. 4 words, said to someone who still wanted a father for 30 more seconds. 3 months ago, Patricia came to take Helen's sewing machine. She stood in the hallway with her coat still on. She did not remove her gloves. That is how you know a person is not staying. I had laid out Helen's scissors, thread tins, and a photograph album, and the blue lunchbox. Patricia touched the handle with one finger. She said, "Brian kept that?" I said, "I found it upstairs." She nodded. Then she told me something I had never heard. He cried over that stupid lunchbox. I almost laughed, because men like me are trained to make small things smaller. But Patricia did not smile. She said, "He thought you forgot him." I wanted to say I was busy. I wanted to say I worked hard for all of you. But Patricia stood there in her gloves, and all those words sounded cheap. The turning point was at the pharmacy 2 days later. I handed the pharmacist my empty amber pill bottle, same white cap, same crooked label. Depression. The young pharmacist asked, "Any questions for the doctor?" I said no. Then I saw my reflection in the plastic shield. Old face, thin mouth. A man waiting for medicine to fix what medicine did not break. Behind me, a father knelt to zip his little boy's coat. The boy kept laughing. The father took the boy's mitten and fixed it slowly. He was late for something. I could see it, but he stayed down there. I held that amber bottle so tight, the cap pressed a red circle into my palm. I thought of Brian's lunchbox, Patricia on the phone, Helen saying, "Come inside." Raymond. For the first time, I did not feel sick. I felt guilty. There is a difference. Here's the truth they will not tell you in waiting rooms. They tell you to get help. Good. Get help. But do not let a label become a hiding place. The world tells you every empty feeling needs a diagnosis. Sometimes it does. Sometimes medicine helps. But sometimes emptiness is your life sending a bill. If you spend 40 years making people wait until after this, you are not building a future. You are training them to live without you. You think you are carrying a backpack of expectations. No. You are handing that backpack to everyone who loves you. I was not just depressed. I was a ghost, asking pills to make the house feel alive. The amber bottle is still in my cabinet, beside Brian's broken lunchbox. Therapists called it depression. I call it a wasted life. If this reached you in time, stay with us on this channel. Subscribe so the next story finds you before it's too late. Tell me in the comments, what are you calling depression that might really be regret? I read them all. I have the time now.